everybody. Welcome along to this sandbox sessions with our good friends from TimeXTender. I've been looking forward to actually. They always bring the fantastic content, and we've really got to know them over the last couple of years. In terms of today's session, we're talking about shit in, shit out, a data quality masterclass. And I've been in data for a little while. I won't tell you quite how long I've been in data, but it's been a while. And data quality has always been that consistent thing. And it's as true today as it's ever been. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Melanie and Louise from TimeXTender. If it's okay, Melanie and Louise, I'll maybe ask you to turn on your cameras and microphone. Come and join me on stage. So how are you doing today, Melanie?
Hi, David. Doing fine, thank you.
Fantastic. And yourself, Louise, how are you doing? Are you there?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I
Good
don't
stuff.
understand why you can't see me, but that's not a bad thing, maybe.
I'm not having that, Louise. Surely not. Surely not. In terms of today's session, obviously we're hearing from both of you. Just for those at home, it's an interactive session. So you'll have the option to use the Q&A function if there are questions that come up. And Melanie and Louise have been very kind to say they'd stick around at the end to obviously help with any questions we may have. But what I'll do, I'll stop sharing my screen. And we'll just perhaps work out your camera, Louise.
Yeah,
and get you to share
I'm
your
on
screen.
it.
Yeah, how's your day been, Melanie? While we're just giving Louise a second to test the camera, have you had a good morning? Busy morning?
Yes, I traveled back from Switzerland to Iceland yesterday and started with freezing cold weather this morning. So it was a blast being back in the cold, wild north.
That's it, eh?
Yeah.
love that. Very jealous, actually. That's definitely one of my favorite places to be. So yeah,
Absolutely recommendable, everyone. Absolutely.
Perfect stuff. Louise, what are we doing?
In
with your
fear of
camera?
crashing my Zoom completely, I'm giving this. I'm just going to share the screen. Oh, there we go.
You've made it. You've made it. That was worth the wait, Louise. I'll tell you what, we've dealt with everything in the background here, haven't we, with this particular webinar, but we've sussed it. In terms of the format, obviously, we're starting with yourself, Louise. So obviously, I'll leave you, if you don't mind, to give a bit of an introduction into your role at TimeXTender. Give us a bit of an introduction to the session, and then I'll leave you to hand over to Melanie, and we'll take it from there. Just in terms of that, do you want to try sharing your screen one more time? We had it for a second, but it seems to have disappeared. Perfect. So that's looking good from my side.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dave. So yeah, I'm Louise Taylor. I'm the regional director in the UK and Ireland and the DACH region here at TimeXTender. I've been with TimeXTender for just a little over 2.5 years now, and our responsibility here at TimeXTender is to embrace data through automation. So it's to try and allow anybody involved in data or with data to really utilize data to its very best and not spend too much time on the things that we hate doing. And so I'm joined today by my colleague, Melanie. Melanie, would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself?
That would be nice. Thank you. Even if I know you could that as well as I do, but my name is Melanie Schneider, sitting in Iceland, and have joined the TimeXTender team a year ago, and just being responsible for enabling our partners and doing the first POCs with the customers outside of Iceland. Really exciting journey, and I'm very, very excited about the webinar today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So as we mentioned in the webinar today, we're going to talk about shit in, shit out. It's the age-old phrase of, if you're ingesting rubbish quality data, if you're not ingesting accurate data, how can you expect to provide clarity over your data, clean reports, accurate reports? If you're not ingesting the right type of information at the right time, then that's going to have a big impact on your business and the insights that you're trying to gather from there. So we shared some information about what you can expect to learn from today. And I'm not going to go through all of these points individually right now, because we'll get into that as we go through this webinar today. But what I wanted to start with, what is data quality? And I did the typical thing. I know I asked ChatGPT, I asked AI a very, very simple question. It gave me a very complex answer, which is not a bad thing. But the simple answer, really, data quality is where data meets the company's expectation of accuracy, validity, completeness, and consistency. So in a nutshell, that is what we see data quality as. And so why is that important? Well, today, most of us would be distraught if we lost our phones for an extended period of time. We don't really realize how dependent we are on these devices and the apps that they contain until they're broken or we lose them for a period of time. But what about when it comes to data? What if you, your customers, management, investors maybe, lost access to data for a full day or maybe even longer, an entire week? But somehow we don't seem to place the same importance. Why is that? Do we not know the impact? Maybe we don't believe the importance of data. Well, hopefully today we'll give some truth behind this. Data quality is critical because it directly impacts decision-making, operational efficiency, customer satisfaction, just to name a few things. So as you can see here on the screen, 80% of companies worldwide face data quality challenges. It's a big issue. You can see here on the screen some very simple examples of what poor data is. So what, right? What does that mean for you? Well, what if we start with your time? Time is an invaluable asset. How much of your time do you spend cross-checking, fixing, or dealing with maybe duplicated information? Is that what you enjoy doing? Certainly not what I enjoy doing. Is it what brings you joy in your day-to-day job? Or is it something that could actually be done better with automation? So you can then focus on the important elements of your role. I know personally that correcting records or checking for duplicate data is something that I really don't enjoy. Definitely doesn't bring me joy. But it isn't just about making sure you're being the best version of yourself for your data and using automation where automation can be most effective. Regulations around data usage are becoming stricter, especially concerning privacy and environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, as some of you may know it. Accurate data is crucial for compliance, and errors can lead to legal issues, financial penalties, and can have a huge impact on your reputation. And so high quality data enables businesses to make these decisions based on data confidently. When the data is inaccurate, outdated, or incomplete, it leads to poor choices and can affect profitability, for example. But what if I told you that 12% of annual revenue is lost due to poor data quality? 12% is a huge number for some dirty data. 12% revenue loss due to poor data quality isn't just a financial setback for a business. It's a threat to growth. It's a threat to customer retention, competitive positioning, and business resilience. But why don't we take this a little bit further? It doesn't really start with the data, does it? It starts with a human. It starts with us and a thought around that data. We need to be thinking about a data-driven culture. A data-driven culture embodies an environment where analytics, statistics, and factual insights form the basis for optimizing processes and accomplishing organizational goals. A culture is how the entire business, from our leadership teams to operational levels, how we view and how we all act upon that data. So rather than thinking about data as a resource for isolated reporting, for example, or for planning, actually, A thriving data-driven culture leverages data across the entire organization, tapping into it for innovation, for example, product development maybe. And the true essence lies in informed decision-making. So, when every department works with the reality of its data, pursuing the collective goals, the entire organization can reap the benefit of a clear data-driven vision. It's not an overnight change. It really is not an overnight change. And it needs to be a commitment to transforming a business. When we can start to rely on high quality data, we can make better decisions faster, smarter, whatever it might be, and we reduce the guesswork. We enable everybody to be able to pursue initiatives that align with real market trends or a business vision, for example. And automation plays a vital role in maintaining data quality. It helps eliminate some of those manual errors, it standardizes some processes, and it enables real-time updates. With automation, we can reduce those inconsistencies, duplicated records, for example, and even outdated information. And all of this then just improves the integrity and usability of your data. So by leveraging that automation, and as I previously mentioned, a data-driven culture, actually productivity can then become heightened. Routine tasks that a lot of us hate doing, such as the manual data entry, the cleansing of that data, the validation of that data, can all be streamlined and can free up your time, our time on the more creative work, on the more scientific data work, on the engineering of that data. And this efficiency then translates into faster project delivery or optimized workflows, and everybody reaps a better performance because of it. So, fostering a data-driven culture with automation isn't just a strategic choice. It's not something just for the leadership team to think about. It's an investment into the future of a business. It's an investment into our productivity. And by improving data quality and embracing automated processes, everybody can start to unlock new levels of productivity, creativity, and resilience in an ever-changing business environment. But you have heard enough about the why from me and the theory of all of this. Let's put it into practice. It's time to dig into some tips and delve deeper into what this might look like for you. So, Mel, I'm going to ask you to share now, and I'm going to pick up the first point, and then Mel's actually going to talk a bit more technical and show you a bit more in detail what some of these data quality controls could look like.
Perfect, let's do that. And can you tell me if you see my slideshow in presentation mode? Is that working?
Yes, it is.
Great.
Thank you very much. And so, as I said, I'm going to take on this first point around data automation because it falls quite nicely with where we just finished on the previous slide. Embracing automation, it's like giving your business a fast, reliable data backbone. Imagine a world where routine data tasks like managing, validating, and standardizing information happen quickly, accurately, and consistently. And it's not something you need to spend hours worrying about or checking. Data automation makes this possible by taking over repetitive, error-prone tasks, allowing you to free up your valuable time to focus on insights, for example, or looking into the data rather than trying to fix it or clean it. It's like having a built-in quality control system. It harmonizes data across the systems and processes for you, ensures that everybody from maybe marketing or finance has the same reliable information at their fingertips when they need it. And so by automating all of this, you reduce the risk of human error. No more inconsistencies, no overlooked details. You create a trustworthy foundation. You embrace automation, and it doesn't just streamline data handling. It actively empowers the entire organization with clean, reliable data, ready to fuel innovation, strategy, and success with customers. Essentially, making you look like a data superhero.
Talking into that, thanks for laying the base, Louise. We will look a little bit better into the implementation of the data cleansing, and I will, give you a little bit of an idea of how we work with our customers and what data cleansing means for businesses. And then also talking about data literacy. I would really like to show you a little bit of what we are basically meeting at the customer side, and best practice examples. And then I would actually like to go into a demo, which is always a very brave thing to do on a webinar, but let's hope it works well today. And just also engaging you, to ask some questions along the way. And we will have a quarter an hour left at the end of this webinar to go through different kind of questions and hopefully find the right answers for you. When we talk about data cleansing, this is something I really learned early on when I joined the team here. It's all about tracking, finding, and monitor where the data is not healthy. And this is not an easy thing to spot. Normally, when we go to customers and we ask, how is your data health? They all say, oh, it's fine. But then when we dig a little bit deeper, we find a lot of incomplete data. We find a lot of inconsistencies. And most of all the time, it's just because they are not aware of. And I will show you today how easy it is to find the data, the bad data quality in the companies. Also, make sure that the data sets are accurate and consistent. And this is all a very valuable thing for making a decision based, taking data-driven decision, basically. What I learned along the way is this, maybe I've seen this before, is a 1-10-100 rule of data quality control. It's all about when do you spot the error and when you fix it. It costs you $1 or €1 in your company when you, start getting to the error before it actually gets into your data processes. It costs only $1 if you can prevent it. It costs 10 if you if you make an error, but then you correct it. And it costs you $100 if that error actually goes through until it ends on your customers. You might say, okay, prevention error. I mean, we are working with humans. It's impossible to prevent an error. But we have actually learned that customers that work with our TimeXTender data quality solution, they are actually trained to create better data and healthier data. You will see it in a while. If you get an email every evening stating that you have registered some, unhealthy data, you might just stop it at one point in time. This has a kind of an educational approach to it. When we talk about the correction, of course, it's important to spot it right away. And this is also where data quality helps you along the way. And then, of course, if it goes out to your customers, it's too late. And it's we consider this as a lost cost or a failure. So talking about the situation we often meet when we go to different companies is that the business users, they are feeding something in a data source, so they have a lot of data sources. Then you have the data teams in the middle and data stewards that try to make some sense of it and work with the data. And then you have the other business users, the executive team, the financial team that have some layer on top of it, some reporting layer, Power BI or any reporting layer, and they basically show the business to the stakeholders. So what often happens is that some numbers don't add up. We all have been there, right? Why does the sales department numbers for the German team doesn't add up? Why is it not the same as in the sources? There's a lot of irregularities and inconsistencies found in that. And often this is a little bit of a black box for the business users. They just think some magic happens in the middle, no idea what. And, if there are a lot of errors happening, that leads to mistrust in the analytics team. And they call the data engineers and they try to run around and try to find the error. And that's often not a very convenient situation. So, and as you know, a lot of things can go wrong. We've heard it from Louise before, timeouts, like IT things that go wrong, like timeouts, fetching a full load, change the source system that didn't make it overnight, or then on the business users side, on the front, some users that have forgotten to put in the mandatory attributes, all these different kinds of things that can happen along the way. And even for smaller business, there are a lot of things happening within a business day. And what is causing all these errors is basically data entry mistakes. That's of course an easy one. If you forget to put on an address on a customer, and if you have an unvalid pricing, so that means you sell on incorrect prices, or you forget to put the discounts on, or you have too much discounts. We will see that in the demo then also afterwards, how you spot this and easily give back the ownership to the ones that have created these entry mistakes. But then you have third party data issues where you basically, just do not receive anything in time. You might be dependent on a currency exchange rate that didn't make it in time, so you sell everything to an outdated pricing, or you didn't get the right inventory status, so you might run out of stock. A lot of things that can go wrong in these connections. And then also you have integration failures. So, integration between systems, a lot of systems need to work together, and there's a lot of things that can fail. And of course, the errors often are found too late, and that is then causing all different kinds of business failures. So when we talk about data quality, we're looking into this 6 category mainly when we work with to find them. One thing is consistency, of course. Is the person Grömender the same in the point of sale system and our CRM? How do we make sure that this is one and the same person? Especially in Iceland, where you have only 5 names to choose from, and everyone is called Gunnar or Grömender. So it's very hard to find a Grömender. And also there's last name is a suffix of the first name, and then son or daughter. So you have Grömender, Grömensson. So how do you make sure that this is the Grömender, Grömensson and the one and only? Then, which is very hard to do, is the accuracy. So we compare it actually in Iceland here to the national registry very often with the social number. So we're allowed to do that. So we can make sure this Grömender, Grömensson is actually the right person. Then we have uniqueness, right? In your company, is the only existing one, especially when they have the same name all over. And then the timeliness. So we basically need to make sure that everything is, when we send out the invoices or send out the salaries for our employees, that everything is synced at the right time correctly. Completeness, one of the biggest one, and actually that's also something where we often start first. It are all the attributes that are needed there for every entity, or the product or the customers. And then at the end is the validity, to make really sure that, for example, the email address is containing an at. You might think, okay, that's a given. You might think that's just logical, that is on place. But you would be surprised how many times we go into that and we find all different kinds of inconsistencies. And it's, of course, extremely important when we talk about your master data, that this data is just in a good place and in a healthy place, especially when you want to grow, or if you want to grow later on. I brought, in regards to data quality, one good example from Iceland is Marel. So this is a company very specifically proud of. It's our flagship here. This company is responsible for food processing. So you can see chicken nuggets here, but they actually got famous by a way they produced a machine that can cut fish with a water stream. So a very clean way of getting the bones of the fish. So and this Marel company has been founded 40 years ago. It has a lot of revenue, as you can read there, and over 8,000 employees in 30 countries. And when we started with our data quality part, 2020, they wanted to improve the data governance overall, and they wanted to enhance productivity, innovation, and the customer service. And that, of course, it's extremely difficult, because they have a lot of different requirements from the stakeholders. And they also were lacking a clear ownership of their processes. So they got in Elsa, and Elsa has actually been lucky enough, a previous TimeXTender, the name was Exmo there, but now it's TimeXTender Data Quality. And she has just found out that, there were a lot of things that needed more ownership. So when she came in 6 months afterwards, she had 200 data quality controls. And I'll show you today how to set up one of these. So can just multiply that then times 200. She had addressed 35 or hired 35 data stewards that were responsible for these issues, to make sure that they are taken care of and they will not happen again. And also just enrich the overall data governance. She has also brought it in a place where actually the business owners and the employees and the data team were on the exact same page, and they understand what's happening throughout the company's data processes. So she has changed the whole way of how they look at their data. And I give you a little bit time to read through the right-hand side, what she has been saying about the data integration part, the data quality part. So important to mention that we are looking into a very simple quality check of how we can do it today in a demo, but then we also have actually compare queries, so where you can basically cross-check, and that's the second part of what you can read here. The cross-system checks are where you can compare two different systems to make sure that the data is consistent. For example, if you want to, compare the e-commerce system with your ERP system to see if the prices are the same. So we can easily look into the two different data sources and do a basically cross-system check, which helps them a lot to improve the data. When we look at, just activate this, at the TimeXTender data quality, the tool itself, it can basically look into data quality checks in the data sources on your DW. You can hook into your TDI, just whatever you like. We can spot the errors there and really make sure that somebody gets noted. And that's a very important part in our data quality part, that actually you have on one hand the business rules. So we always also take the business into consideration, and that's what the first part here is. Talking about business rule, but then we also always need somebody that is responsible for it. So if we spot an error, who should actually clean this up? And it's two sides of the story, and you will see how easy it is to set this up in our system. So we will generate, a lot of emails to different persons that just, make them aware of the data, of the bad data quality. And as I said in the beginning, also train them to create better data quality in the future. And we also newly implemented webhooks. So that means it doesn't need necessarily to be the old way, like an email, but you can also link this to your Teams environment, or you can link this to your ticketing system. So you can be very creative about how this data issues should be basically getting their way to the business owners. But I've talked a lot about how it could look like. So now I would just need to quickly stop sharing, and because I need my other screen, and we'll just show you how this looks a little bit better go into a demo. Share my other screen. There we go. Can you see this all right, Louise?
Yes, that looks fine. Thank you.
Or somebody. Okay, super. Thank you. Okay, so we are in our new version of the web view. This is our TimeXTender data quality. And just to give you a little bit of idea, this is the data set. So these are the data providers I have in here. We have, Business Central data, just some demo data that we can work with. And this is just the data sets that we set up here. When we look into our data quality rules, we can basically create rules, and that's the beauty of it. The business users can very simply create their own rules here once the data is connected. And this should be a really low-code, no-code version. So if I would, for example, want to look into, our business rule says we're not allowed to give a discount higher than 30%. So lower than 30%. So I will basically create discount. That's our business rule. So I will spot everything that has been actually going out where the discount is greater than 30%. I select the data set. So we want to look into the sales. And then it's a very simple way of creating your rules. So we add a condition, and we said basically looking into the invoice discount value. That's just one of the tables that we can look into. And we want to make sure this is, we will spot everything that's greater than 30%, 0.3. And then we can basically preview our data and see if something happens. See, okay, there's 3 times somebody has given out a discount that was higher, 40%. We can also see the salesperson. Of course, it's extremely dependent on what you have in your system here. I need to save this. Like this. And that's one thing, right? You find, the business rules, you create this. In our desktop version, you can do a lot of, like, this is a SQL window, so you can do SQL coding, you can go wild, and we have customers that are very creative and do pages of SQL coding here. But, it can also be a simple way of doing it here from the web client. So, the desktop application has a lot of more functionality for data engineers. So then we go to our properties, and here is where we can add a description. So we can say this we shouldn't give more than 30 discount. And then very important is just create an action. So the one that actually gets flagged by this, they basically need to know what is to do now. So for now, we just say, please remember it next time, and do not give that. And then what you can also do is actually map users. You saw before we had in the in our tables, we could see who was the business owner. So you can just say, if you have a JO, this should go out to James. For the moment, not to spam anyone, I leave this here. I save this. Then we have a column setting. You could say what they should see in the emails, and then we basically can add the email. Here's also the webhooks where I said before. We can define what should happen. So if only the new exception should be flagged, or also the open ones. So if somebody has not been cleaning it up, if they should also be notified, you can choose some different templates, and you can map the users, and then you can basically create this. Just it takes some time to go through. So I'll show you quickly how this looks like for the end user. When I run the exception, I get an email. And then it basically spots for me all the accounts more than 30%. So I can schedule the query and say it should run every Monday morning, or it should run every weekday morning. And when it basically runs, then the responsible person gets an email, and also with the action and the description, so they know exactly what is to do. I will just quickly show you there are some rules predefined already. For example, if you have customer without an address, and that's very common, that you spot basically where the address is blank, and you send it to the business ruler. And what's nice in our web view also, that you have an overview. So you see immediately all the exceptions that are open. You see which one, when they were updated last time, and you also see the things that are longer in the system. We have a lot of customers that escalated if it is not cleaned up after a month or so. So you have a great overview of all the exceptions and what you can see here. You can also drill into. So if I see, okay, let's take the one that has, without an address here. And you can use this like a ticketing system. So there might be, somebody that is on holiday, and, okay, Gunnar is not here today. So I can click into the exception, and I can say, okay, this one, I snooze actually for a time until he comes back from holiday. So that means when we run the query again, it would not spot it until this period is over. And it would maybe just, spot it again in December when we know Gunnar is back from holidays. So you can use this also as kind of a ticketing system. You can flag something as not an exception when we, just never get an address from the customer because he's, I don't know, just but there might be some different kinds of reasons for spotting something as not an exception, or you can fix it, mark it as fixed, so next time it wouldn't run it again. So that is what you can do with our TimeXTender data quality, and just a very approachable way also for the business to use this one like that. Okay, so I go over to the third part of our slideshow. Just need to quickly switch the screen again. Let's switch over to the presentation mode. We heard a lot about data cleansing and how to spot the issues, and now it's basically about literacy. So it is not only important to spot it and find it, but then also to understand it and analyze it and interpret it. And it is basically a lot about communication and a common understanding, about visualization. And it's basically, as you can read, not a technical skill, but a fundamental capability for everyone to just, getting the skills and mindsets necessary to make more data-driven decision. And that is what this all is about. And we talk a little bit about the orchestration part of the TimeXTender orchestration part. That is also a very essential part of the whole data governance or data quality piece. And we often see that when we have companies with a very bad data health, it's often not an IT problem, but it's a business problem. So often the business is very detached and they do not really know what's going on. And the ones that are from my generation, they know the slogan, you know, it's all in the mix. So, and this is really also here. So the right mix of people, technology, that's why we're on this webinar today. So you need the right tools to visualize and orchestrate it. And then also, of course, the right processes. So common understanding of the three essential parts is basically what ensures a good data quality. Before I show you how it looks in the system, I just want to quickly add an example from Iceland. Something we're also very proud of is the Blue Lagoon. This has been named as one of the 25 wonders of the world. Actually, it is not naturally built, but please don't tell anyone. It's a side effect of a geothermal plant that has been built, but it actually became a huge company. So they started with the, you know, just the lagoon and the spa, but now they're, you know, in the hotel business. They are, you know, they do skincare research. They are very pioneer in the just all these sustainability initiatives. So this has become a big company, and managing a business of this size is extremely difficult while maintaining a high standard. And for them, really, the quality of the products, the quality of the service is what they are known for. So the high quality and data quality is immensely important for them. And when we looked into that, we saw basically that they had, you know, data from many different systems, and they were, you know, fragmented across multiple departments. You know, there were no real ownerships. There's also no really insights of how the data processes looked like. There were no or very little decisions taken on data, so little data-driven decisions, and also they needed a really good data foundation so they could grow even further. They had limited access for different users, no structure, so there were a lot of challenges they faced. And then after Schneider came in, and you know, they had a lot of like brainstorming session and sat on the table, so everyone had a common understanding of how the data processes look like, and they just wanted to democratize data across the organization and move in away from just everyone does something behind door. And they created this. In my view, this is beautiful. In yours, it's maybe a bit confusing, but so that's a holistic understanding of their data processes and their data landscape. And it's a bit overwhelming when you look at this the first time. So we have many companies that do different kind of process maps, but in this case, they decided they just want to have all in once, and they, you know, wanted everyone to have a common understanding on how this looks like. So this is the TimeXTender orchestration piece, where you see different bubbles. So these bubbles actually show the health of your data processes. And behind these bubbles can be almost anything. So you can, you know, orchestrate PowerShell. You can do Azure Data Factory pipeline. Of course, our TimeXTender packages or jobs. So you can mix and match all different technologies together and get one common view also, you know, in the cloud. So you can access this from everywhere to see how healthy the data is in any point of time in your company. And then you have yellow bubbles, that's a bit outdated, so you want to look into this. And then you have also red bubbles, which say that some packages were failing, and that's of course also valuable. So it's not only the business, you know, they check this when they send invoices to the customer if everything is okay, but it's of course also the data engineers to see if there are no packages failing or anything. And then we have one thing that we call the CFO button. So it's basically we can run connect the jobs, so that our financial person doesn't need to know, or sorry, the Blue Lagoon's financial person doesn't need to know exactly which packages are, you know, important for finances. This has been created by a data engineer in the background, and when you know, the CFO comes in the morning, you can basically just click on update finance, and in the background it updates all the finance packages. So you can basically kickstart it again from the cloud, or run the package again through the cloud. And a lot of times this just, you know, solves the issues right away. So this is a very convenient button to have. If I just quickly, I see we are a little bit short of time, but I will still allow myself to go into and share a very quick view of how this looks in our demo. So we are again in the web view of our TimeXTender data governance part, which also holds the orchestration. We go to process map. I just take a process map I've done here, and then you can basically see this is one side. You have here some data sources. Excel is still a very common data source, and you will load this into staging, and then the data warehouse. This is just the demo data. And what you can do also is we can click on the package and see how it has been performing in the past. So it gives a duration in ETA, and we can see also if something failed here, we get the underlying error log. So here something with our gateway wasn't finished executing, so we can know exactly what has been going wrong with this. And then I quickly sum up with showing how you can run the process. So you can go here, and then if you want to select run everything or just run the finance or run the inventory, you can basically just the finance person can go here, run the finance, start it, and then it will basically kickstart all the processes connected to finance in the background before it ends up in the finance layer. So it basically means that if something is not green, you can go in, you can kickstart it again until it turns green, and then you're happy to pay your employees or send out invoices. So that's all about the literacy. We need a cleanse. We need to basically have a visualization, and we basically just want to make sure all the data processes are known, visual, and so it can be basically accessible for all the relevant persons in your company. That was my part. I'm handing happily over to Louise.
Thank you very much. So hopefully that's all made a bit of sense for you all and has given you some moments to think about. As Flight of the Buffalo author James Belasco and Ralph Steyer said, change is hard because people overestimate the value of what they have and they underestimate the value of what they may gain by giving that up. So what I mean by that is just by having the right tools and processes that Melanie alluded to earlier in place, it's not enough to ensure that everybody stays data driven. And this is where we can all play a valuable role. All of us can help build a robust data culture or a thought process around data as a valuable asset. We can start to learn to use the tools that we have that we may need, and we can start to insist on better quality data for better decision making. And so the real value of us all being a bit more data driven is seen gradually over time. It's a bit like exercising or healthy eating. I think we'd all love for that to happen overnight, that we're fitter, stronger, or whatever it might be. It takes a while to see the results. It's accumulative, and there will be dragons along the way that we will all have to slay. But once we start to see the tangible benefits, we'll never want to go back. And so we've spoken a lot today about the theory, and you've seen some examples, but I wanted to give you some tangible takeaways to maybe start thinking about or to start utilizing, or, how can you bring this to life in your business? And so there's just some 7 key points here on how you can start to think about with your data quality in your business. This is being recorded, so you will have access to this afterwards if you've not had time to read all of these or take note of all of these starting points. And then one last thing from us, let's help you kickstart that journey. So you can see here on the screen, and I will put it in the chat shortly, a QR code for you to scan, where we can either deliver to you a personalized demo so we can use some example data controls that are relevant to you and your business, or maybe get you started with a 2-week free proof of concept or a sandbox to play in, or a trial or something along those lines. So let us help you. We're here to help you and help you on that journey for a better data-driven culture. And that's everything from us that we wanted to discuss with you. And I think we have ended bang on time. We are nothing but efficient. I would like to say it's because I'm in the presence of a Swiss, and they are the ultimate in efficiency. So yeah, Dave, back over to you.
I've got a lot of time for the efficiency. So well done both. You clearly run a very tight ship. So yeah, I've seen a couple of emojis come up, clapping on the screen, but stick them in the chat. Say hello, say thank you in the chat if you don't mind. Let us know that's been helpful and you've enjoyed the session. As mentioned at the start, we have got some time with Louise and Melanie for questions. So feel free to put them into the Q&A. There's 3 in there at the moment. So Sarav and Scott, thank you very much for jumping in. One thing I will call out is any questions, even if you don't have your own question, you can upvote other people's questions. So if someone else has asked a question that you think is particularly great, just give it a little thumbs up and that will move it to the top for us. And just as that's come in, I've had the first message in the chat from Kane. Thank you all. So thank you very much, Kane, for being interactive. Sometimes people don't like to get on the keyboard, but it's nice to know that people have been out there in the world watching along. So just as we're getting things going, I did have a couple of questions of my own. And you know, when you're hosting these things, you get to ask a couple, don't you? So yeah, I'll kick things off and then we'll definitely get into the Q&A. I think there was a couple of things that, well, I loved the whole webinar, but there was a couple of things that really jumped out at me straight away. And you explained it so, you know, methodically and easily, and that piece about starting and getting in there early, and the cost of getting in there and fixing it to start is better at the beginning than it is, you know, at the end. But still, it does seem to me it can be a very big journey that you're potentially going to be going on when it comes to data quality. So I just wondered whether you recommended, you know, how you would go about recommending, you know, that you start a data quality improvement initiative, and particularly if you've got limited, you know, resources in your team. Where would you start on this journey if you're recommending to those at home?
I think how we often see is that we start with the low-hanging fruit and where it hurts the most. You know, mostly actually the financial department has a very good idea about where it hurts, because it's, you know, always results in money that is lost, so lost sales. So we had cases where we had, you know, just 3 or 4 controls on their master data. If a customer address is missing, or, you know, like the discount that I've been showing, this kind of queries. And this already gives a very good feeling about, you know, what's possible. And then we have companies that have, you know, over 10,000 controls running every week. So, you know, they can quickly, it gets over to other departments, and they start a new way of how they look at their data, and actually gets, you know, like a lot of questions, can we not monitor this? Like, isn't it possible to do this and that? So it really, like, you know, is a work in progress, and it can, you know, completely change the way. But as an easy start, I would say just take the lowest hanging fruits that hurts you the most.
Amazing.
If that helps.
Anything to add on that one, Louise? Or
no, I was going to say no, but then I'm going to add something. So yes. The only thing I would add is, you know, I think one of the points that you made in the question, Dave, was around particularly with small teams or teams that have taken on or have a huge task list. Actually, that's where automation can be your best friend, because using a tool to automate some of the really mundane, time-intensive manual processes that don't bring any value, that's where you can really start to reap those benefits with those small teams, or with those teams where you've got such a huge task list to get through. So it's about not being afraid of automation and using automation to help you with your data and your business processes.
Amazing. Yeah, fantastic. I think a lot of our clients that we speak with at the moment, everyone seems to be trying to do more with less. And it seems very much that you've built a platform that lets a lot of this, you know, heavy lifting be taken care of actually, in the automation kicking in, which is fantastic. I guess just following on from that, you've obviously talked about using the automations, attacking the low hanging fruit first, building up from there. I just wondered, with the clients that you work with, or how you would recommend, you know, structuring the teams. And again, I loved it at the end where you said, you know, bad data isn't an IT problem, it's a business problem. This seems like a team sport again. So the companies that do this well, how do you see them structure their teams? Does it start at the very top with the chief data officer, or do you find someone within the organization? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think if you don't have a chief data officer, or you don't have a senior leader responsible for data in the business, where, maybe some of these large organizations do, but some of the medium or smaller organizations don't yet, you do need like a senior exec or a leader who is sponsoring the initiative. So it does need to start from the top. The importance of data needs to start from the leadership team. And it might not be that you have a chief data officer or a head of data or whatever it might be. And it might be, as Melanie pointed to earlier, it's still seen as an IT problem. And that's something we come across very, very frequently. And the burden sits within the IT team. And the IT team, I'm sure we have lots of these guys on the call now, but you're able to fix these problems. But if you're continually fixing the problem, then the issue starts earlier on. The issue is in the quality of the data. You're continually manually solving these challenges. But if the business or the leadership or the exec sponsor, whoever it might be, isn't starting at the beginning with the quality of their data, all you're doing is duplicating your time. So we spoke earlier about, duplicated data and fixing that, in the source. But you're just duplicating your time doing the same thing over and over again if you don't start to address the problem earlier on. So it wasn't a direct answer to your question. I apologize, Dave, but structuring the team is probably a difficult question to answer. But I think the most important is an exec sponsor.
Yeah, that makes lots and lots of sense, actually. So I'm going to do one more question from me, and then I think we've actually now got 6 in the Q&A. So we'll do some rapid fire. We'll get through the Q&A. I think, again, the thing that, again, made sense to my simple brain was targeting the low-hanging fruits, Melanie. And in terms of that, I guess you've got lots of experience working with lots of different clients and stuff like that. And I just wondered whether there was, any common low-hanging fruits or any common poor data quality sources that you typically come across. Is there anything that you'd call out there?
We actually have collected a lot of data quality controls over all the 10 years that we're existing, and have put them in a library. So I think if that would be something that could be interesting, please reach out. But it is really just too high discounts, anything that regarding fraud. Then we have a lot of missing attributes, the things. And I saw somebody asked in the chat also if it can actually see if we have duplicates in customer IDs or so. All these kind of things that are very low hanging. You most of the time that this is a problem in a company when you have this kind of inconsistency and where they are. And to your answer question before, it's basically really important to get the business also on the table. So often the data engineers know it much better where it hurts, but I think where the data where you have inconsistencies and what doesn't add up, but it's often also the business that needs to be on the page, on the same page, and saying where it really hurts.
Makes lots of sense. Lots of sense. And as you pointed out, if it comes down to money, the business people normally tend to focus. So this is good. Quickly in the chat, we've had Christina just jump in and say thank you. As someone new to all things data, this was really cool. Gabriella, thank you for the great presentation. Manuel, thank you all for the insights and concepts being discussed. Greg, thanks for a very informative webinar. And there's several more in there. So Jake, thank you very much. Yeah, list goes on. So it's nice to know that you've all been out there and enjoying things. And I think in terms of the questions in the Q&A feature, the first question at the top, I've ordered by most upvotes, actually. Let me give that a little refresh. So the first one actually is, very much about where do you start with TimeXTender? The question from Prasanna is actually, do you have a sandbox version or a version that learners can, get their hands on? I know you shared that QR code at the end there, Louise, where people can get in and have a demo. So I guess I'll summarize that question. If you wanted to get started with TimeXTender, if you wanted to test out this data quality product, what should the people on the webinar do?
Yeah, so we have a trial version, a free trial version. It's limited to 2 weeks, but we can help support that longer if necessary. If you have some more complicated data quality controls or time restrictions maybe. So yeah, we have some trial versions. We recommend either supporting with an initial kickoff call to help you navigate initially. But yes, we do have a free trial version that you can start to get involved in.
I think,
and to add on that, it's a quick setup. So we need just the access to a data provider, and then we can do this, and it, a few hours, if not even just one, is enough. So
amazing,
quick.
fantastic stuff. And that leads perfectly into Vidya's question there. So starts off by saying, interesting presentation and demos, thank you. What integrations into existing data ingestion, ELT and output platforms are supported? So you've touched there, Melanie, you need to get access, you need to connect it to the systems. Does it connect to everything? What do you see most commonly? Could you speak a little bit about how you would go about, that initial connection process?
It is connected to the most common, data source. So, AWS and things that have been on the Q&A session. So the things we have been, meeting the most is of course covered, but everything we do not natively integrate, it can be, done through a command line or PowerShell. So there is nothing that we have not successfully connected so far through that. So, it's.
Oh, Melanie, that sounds like a challenge.
People will hate me for that, but
what have you done, Melanie? What have you done? Amazing. Yeah, that makes lots of sense. And I guess just quickly following on from that question, it sounds like you are very actively working with your clients, and there's a product roadmap there and stuff like that. So what does the future look like for this? And maybe actually, can you see any future trends? Obviously, we're in a very exciting time at the moment with artificial intelligence and large language models and stuff like that. Have you got any future trends or future roadmap that you're working on?
Exactly that. The AI topic is extremely important. And we're working already on a prototype that actually can detect, irregularities or spikes in your data. So it. We're trying to hook into the AI to really see, can it basically create certain things for you? Can it spot things that you would else miss? Like the potential is immense, and we are just starting there and already excited about the first implementation. So I just tested it last week, and it's amazing what you can see in regards of abnormalities and trends and what it can learn the data model. So this is lots to come. Very promising things.
It is exciting times, isn't it? That is for sure in every area. I'm gonna I'm conscious of time, so we've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll do my best to get through a couple more. You did touch on that there's two questions about detecting duplicates, and I think you did touch on that, Melanie. You can do that, so I just wanted to tick that off. That is something that's built in within the system.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. I'm going to jump to the question then from Scott. Scott's obviously a data scientist by the look of it, and he's talking about exploratory data analysis that you have to do sometimes as a data scientist to get your data organized, to perhaps start doing some initial models, or he explicitly talks about time series data. Does that differ if you're a data scientist? How do you is it just good data all in all? Does it help with that exploratory piece, do you think?
That's a very good question. I would need to ask actually somebody about that. So I've not encountered this kind of things yet, but yeah, let me get back to you with that answer.
That's perfect. We know who everyone is on the webinar actually, and we like a little follow-up, and quite often I don't get to every question, which is actually what's happening here. So sometimes we can pull it into a little blog post even and share it with everyone after. I guess just to kind of wrap up. I feel like you guys are very supportive, of the data community. You've called out you're happy to speak with people, you're happy to jump on, give a demo, you're happy to do the free trial and stuff like that. Are there other resources out there or other TimeXTender products that link it all together for people that are interested in this type of data quality and orchestration? I'll maybe come to you first, Louise.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so we've actually got 4 products in our suite that create a holistic data estate, if you like. Data quality is the one we've touched mainly on today, and orchestration towards the end. We also have a master data management tool, and then we have a data integration tool. The data integration was our birth product, if you like, and that is ingesting multiple data sources into a single source of truth or a pipeline, and then pushing it out into something like Tableau or Power BI. So Yes, we have 4 products in the suite, and the idea is to create this holistic ecosystem for your data.
Makes lots of sense, actually. And I think a lot of companies out there, you know, have similar challenges, and it seems to be that TimeXTender have kind of thought this through and broke it down into these 4 areas to be able to support in all the different ways. So that's absolutely fantastic. We've gone 1 minute over. I'm going to be in trouble for this, aren't I? After you guys finish the presentation.
We were so efficient, Dave.
So efficient. The one time I get involved, we've gone 1 minute over. But I will draw things to a close now. But how did you find that today? Did you both enjoy giving the session?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice to be able to think of trying to help people in the community that are maybe having these struggles, but think they could be alone, or that, you know, maybe it's just them that are experiencing these duplicates or these errors. And I think the chat shows exactly, you know, when you're in a data community, you're never alone.
Perfect. And yourself, Melanie, how did you
Yes.
find it?
Absolutely, it was very nice seeing the interactions also in the chat and the questions, and I hope we can get back to all the ones that haven't been answered. I saw some interesting there, so it was a blast being here. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
It went so quick. I could talk for another hour.
Oh, tell me. Yeah, it's the same every single time. But I'm going to just draw things to a close by actually thanking TimeXTender. Obviously, we're a data community. Everything we do is always for free, in person or online, whatever it is. And we can't do it without the support of companies like TimeXTender. And you've been fantastic supporters of the Data Science Festival for the last couple of years. So big thank you to TimeXTender as a whole. And equally, thank you very much to both of you. I do always say it at the end, it's not just giving up your hour. Now, you know, you've kind of clearly put a lot of thought into the presentations and what you wanted to get across. So massively appreciated from me. I will also
and thank you for having us, Dave.
Yes, Louise. We're going to have you back. I can tell it's happening. 2025. It's going to be a good year. I'm going to end just by thanking everyone at home for joining us as well. As Melanie called out, although it's online, it feels interactive. It feels like we're part of a community, and that's all down to you people joining at home. So thank you very much for that. And we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and we'll speak to you soon. So thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.